In today's world, they are seen as arch rivals, but in reality, their story began as a secret love story. Iran and Israel. These are two nations that were once the closest of allies, willing to do anything for each other. This was no ordinary relationship. It was a friendship where leaders met in secret and signed classified agreements. The irony is that the very nuclear program Israel now views as the world's greatest threat was originally gifted to Iran as a precious token by Israel and the United States together. What were the compulsions that forced a Muslim nation and a Jewish state to become best friends? Why did the Israeli PM have to visit Tehran wearing a wig? And what was the turning point that set this bond on fire? To understand the roots of this friendship, we must go back to an era when the Middle East looked entirely different. Initially, the Ottoman Empire ruled here, which collapsed in 1922 following World War I. Then came British rule, and a new wave of Arab nationalism began to rise rapidly. The Arabs, newly liberated, wanted to establish their own massive independent nation. But there was one player on this chessboard who was deeply troubled by this Arab unity, and that was Iran. At that time, Iran was a powerhouse, and the Shah considered himself far superior to the Arabs. Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi feared that if all Arab nations united, his monarchy would be in grave danger. One issue was the battle over the name of the Persian Gulf, which Arabs had started calling the Arabian Gulf. The second was the silent rivalry between Shia and Sunni beliefs over who would represent Islam. The Shah feared that rising Sunni Arab influence might reach Iran and eventually topple his throne. But who knew that Iran, feeling isolated in the Middle East, would soon find a perfect ally? Then came 1948, when the Jewish state of Israel was established following a United Nations declaration. Immediately after Israel's birth, neighboring Arab nations saw it as an injustice and launched an attack. While this war threatened Israel's existence, it became a strategic path for the Shah to counter the Arabs. In reality, Iran didn't have as much issue with Israel as it did with the growing power of the Arab bloc. On the other hand, Israel realized it desperately needed non-Arab friends among its hostile neighbors. Because of this, Israeli PM David Ben-Gurion created a special policy known as the Peripheral Doctrine. His logic was that since Israel is a small state, it must form alliances with the neighbors of its enemies. On the map, the largest and most vital neighbor of the Arabs was Iran, laying the foundation of their bond. In 1950, Iran recognized Israel de facto and made an official offer of friendship. It was an open secret that everyone knew, yet it was officially kept under wraps. A massive Israeli office was opened in Tehran, functioning like an embassy, but without a flag or sign. The Shah had three main reasons for this. First, he wanted to turn Iran into a modern industrial power. Second was the fear of Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser, who was leading the charge of Arab nationalism. The third and most vital reason was the Shah's extreme proximity and debt to the United States. America also wanted its two favorite allies, Iran and Israel, to work together in harmony. This friendship grew so deep that Israel's Mossad began training Iran's secret police, the SAVAK. Mossad and SAVAK shared intelligence and collaborated to target various militant groups. Furthermore, Israel provided Iran with advanced weapons and technology that the Arab world couldn't even imagine. Both nations signed major agreements for missile technology and nuclear weapons research. Iran's nuclear program, which the world now tries to stop, actually began with Israeli assistance. When the U.S. provided the first research reactor in 1967, it was Israel that trained the Iranian scientists. They were partners in trade and oil, working together to break the Arab nation's oil monopoly. The friendship was so tight that PM Ben-Gurion would land at Tehran airport in a wig to avoid the media. But finally, The day arrived in 1979, when the revolution buried this golden friendship forever. Khomeini declared Israel an enemy of Islam and erased all traces of the Shah's old alliances. Though wartime needs briefly reunited them,